This is an interesting toolbar. So I've actually decided what we're basically going to be doing is demonstrating it today, and letting you know what each of the features are on it by showing it to you on different kinds of pages and documents. And then if we have time, we'll make sure you have your version of it up and running, and then give you a chance to practice with it on some documents on your own computer or on web pages on your own computer. So hi, Melissa, I'm gonna put the support document in the chat for you. It's the same one that's available in the Distance Learning Hub, but that's what we're going to be using today as a point of reference for this. Read and Write for Chrome is not an assignment generator. It's not like Kami. It's not going to create an assignment in Google Classroom for you or anything like that. It's really much more of both an accessibility tool plus a tool that has features that help students produce written text more accurately and for those who struggle, plus a tool that provides some assistance with note-taking and also vocabulary development. So it has a few features that various students in your classes might benefit from. This tool has already been force installed on district-owned devices as long as you are signed into Chrome browser with your San Juan account. This is also true of your students. Your students who have district-owned Chromebooks are automatically signed into Chrome browser on their, with their school account. But if they're using personal devices, that's where we run into some glitches, and those glitches are affecting Zoom, Read and Write for Chrome, Kami, and one other, GoGuardian. And the reason for that is on a personal device, students aren't required to sign in with their San Juan account. It's a personal device. People can be signed into Chrome with any account, and they could still sign into Portal or Drive or Classroom with their San Juan account. And the way we see this happen most commonly is two different ways. Number one, our older students who have a variety of games they like to play on the internet and also sites they like to visit that are blocked when they're signed in with their San Juan account because of our content filtering. They put Chrome on a personal account so that they can do all the things they want to do and access those games and those sites, but still get to Portal and Google Drive and Google Classroom and so on. The other reason this happens is in families where there are multiple people sharing the same device, and someone such as an older family member is letting a child borrow their device, but the adult is the person signed in to Google Chrome. And what happens is then there's a mismatch between the person trying to access the tools and the person who's signed into Google Chrome, and then it doesn't work very well. So this is something that's going to be important to communicate out to your students, and it's not intended to be hard, but it's tiny and it's hard to see, and so it gets hard to explain. But your students need to be signed into Chrome browser. Here on my screen that you're looking at, you are seeing that I'm signed into Google Docs. That's not the same as Chrome browser. Chrome browser is the one at the very top to the right of the web address, and in my case, to the right of all my pretty little extensions that I have installed. If I click on that, it says nnateits@sanjuan.edu. If your students click there, it should say their student email address. If another teacher clicks here, it should say their teacher email address and not a private Gmail. I am not totally sure if they're able to force install by account only. In other words, it doesn't matter if it's a district-owned device or not. In theory, extensions are dependent on the account more than the device. So in theory, as long as the kids are signed in, they should see the Read and Write purple puzzle piece. They should. I have noticed a little bit of a weird switch up in how Google works with extensions. I just noticed it over the last month or so. So I noticed some of my extensions disappeared, and I was like, excuse me, where did my extensions go? And then I noticed this funny little puzzle piece that I didn't recognize as an extension that I had installed. It's the extensions manager. It's new. And I had to click on it, and I had to make sure that the extensions I wanted accessible actually have the blue push pin so that they're pinned to my browser. Now, I did have someone in my last session say she doesn't have the puzzle piece and couldn't figure out how to pin. There is another way to get to your extensions through your Chrome settings which are the 3 dots to the right, and you can go to settings and then look up extensions, and you can manage your extensions that way. I don't know yet for all of your students the degree to which students will have to hunt for their read and write extension, partially because it's very new, partially because whether or not it shows up automatically might still depend a little bit on exactly what device they're using. But we have force installed it for staff and for students. This toolbar, the way an extension works most of the time, some of them are a little different, but most of the time, if you want to use an extension, you click it to turn it on, and sometimes you click it to turn it off. So I just turned off my little read and write, and now I have my normal Google Docs top of my page. If I want to use the tools that are available in Read or Write, all I have to do is find the little purple icon and click on it. And that basically turns on the extension. Okay. This extension will let me do several things. And what I did in the support document that I think a lot of you have probably already started scrolling through was I gave you a little guide, and I actually gave you links to resources that have bigger guides that are prettier. But I gave you a little guide for what every possible tool is, but you won't see every tool on every page. For example, in a Google Doc, you'll see the tools for writing and proofreading. But on a web page where you don't have permission, to write or to edit, I don't have the proofreading tool. It's not an option for me. So the tools do vary. And here's a tool called Simplify. That tool called Simplify, which is the second to last one on the right, does not appear when I'm in Google Docs. I don't have that Simplify tool. So there are different tools, and I just noticed one that I hadn't caught that was different here. I'm gonna have to grab and add this one, hover speech. I'm gonna grab it and add it right now. So the tools that you have depend on exactly what kind of document you are looking at. So right here, hover speech. And I'll look up that one again. The idea behind this from the company that makes it, called Text Help, is that students can then have access to these tools to support them with the content that they are receiving from their teacher. So depending on what they need, they can use the tools that they want. If I put the cursor here at the beginning, and I'm someone who struggles to read, and I do better if the text is read aloud to me, I can actually click on, not the audio maker, the play button. So I have my cursor at the beginning. It might be having a hard time.
Read and Write for Google Chrome.
And then I've noticed it behaves differently once in a while.
Read and Write for Google Chrome.
Okay, stop.
Read and Write for Chrome is a toolbar that provides a variety of support tools for the web and common file types accessed through.
It's having a hard time keeping up with me because I'm trying to stream and have it do its thing at the same time. But you can see that it highlights as it reads in order to support the reader. I'm going to turn this off now so that I have access to other tools. That's just one thing that it can do. Let's say, however, that I want to get support in another way. As a student, I'm going to click on a hard word and see what it does. As a student, I can click on the dictionary tool, and it will give a variety of definitions in order to support the learner to understand what accessed might mean in this case. But here's the cool thing. Maybe I don't speak English that well. It does work with the site to try to provide a picture dictionary. I don't think those aren't always possible, but it will try to find a picture to help the person be like, oh, so they're getting something, they're accessing it, they're getting it. I guess that's what that means. Or they can choose from a list of languages. So I picked French, and it took accessed and said that's the verb accéder, so that the student can understand it. It is defaulted. It looked to me like it was defaulted to Spanish. I will show you today how to go into the settings. You'll have to teach your students this. It does have Pashto, for example. So your students, if I go, actually I'll do it right now. If I go to my settings, options, and change it from French to Pashto. Nope, I went too fast. There we go. and say okay. And notice I was also able to change the size and make it bigger. It's a little bit small. I can click this now and I can hit translate. And now it's going to look, oh, it didn't stall last time. It went really fast. Hold on. It's struggling to come up with the word for accessed in Pashto, but normally, and I can see a little colored bar going as it's trying to think. Let me try a different word just to see if I can get this up and running again. It might not like the fact that I changed languages in the middle of the document. All right, well, let's see. If I do means, there we go. That's listed in Spanish because that's the default. And it's giving several because their means has a variety of meanings actually in many languages. So it's giving several and it's not a full contextual translation. I also noticed it can only do one word at a time, which as someone who does speak another language fluently, I can tell you is a little problematic because when you do one word at a time, it's much more likely that you're going to end up with an error in the translation because you don't have the full sense of how that word fits into the other words around it in the sentence. So it is a support tool, but it's one that students need to understand might not always be able to provide the precise definition that they're looking for that particular sentence when they're trying to translate. Okay, we'll let you stop trying to translate. Now, there are a couple other things it can do as well. In addition to reading aloud, it will actually create an audio file of this entire document. If I choose Audio Maker, it will create an audio file of the whole thing and save it to my hard drive so that I can send that to somebody who needs it. And it will just be an audio file, but that won't be highlighted. It's not a video. It's just going to be strictly audio. The other thing it can do is it can open, if you're doing research, and whether or not you have access to this, again, depends on what kind of document you're on. But if your students were doing research, so if I go over to my untitled document and I open up my Read and Write toolbar, I'm going to show you a couple of features here, actually. One of the things it will do is open a Google search bar off to the right in a minute. I had a little bit of a, oh no, it wants me to have a word. Hold on. It's a little bit like the Explore tool. Now, Google Docs already has this built in, by the way, as some of you know, but they can click here and it will open up a search box for your students to help with their research. Just so you know, you might prefer that your students actually use the one that's built into Google Docs, which is in the lower right corner. Nothing on web pages is just decoration, right? I mean, even no matter how small it looks, these tiny little icons, they have a function. So does this funny little gray icon. So if you click on that and you click the Explore button, it actually has opened a Google search engine right here inside their document. And if we pretend I wrote a whole sentence and I now wanted to cite something that was said, hold on a second. Let's see if there's related research. Let's go to more. Okay, there we go. I want to cite this source. This has to do with why I typed this whole sentence that I imagined I typed. I didn't really type it. If I hit the plus button, it actually, well, that's not a very nice statement. Anyway, it actually quoted that statement, provided the #1 footnote, and added the appropriate footnote to the bottom of the page. And if up at the top, above that, I say Walt Disney was fascinated by color and movement, and I don't know, I'm making this up. He was fascinated by color and movement, and I want to, it looks like they changed their research thing, but I want to cite something. I can now, it's going to insert text. Yeah, they definitely changed something here. But it will actually insert text and add a new footnote. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. So notice how it inserted the text, added the footnote, changed this one to #2, added the thing to the bottom. So your students can do research right here, even for images. They can search documents for terms, and so on. And all of that happens to the right. And that might be a better use than the search bar here, which causes your kids to have to go out to another source and then navigate their way back to the document. So I just wanted you to know that just because this tool has a search bar, that might not be the best way to do it. Here's another feature that it has for typing for kids. it has something called predictive text. Now, this is for students who need a support tool in order to properly in order to compose their ideas in writing in a way that's comprehensible to others. They make a lot of mistakes. They have a significant difficulty with spelling and language conventions and so on. And so perhaps as part of an IEP or just as a support for learners, they need support in order to do written text in a way that is correct. So they can turn on their Read and Write toolbar. I do see a couple of chats came in. They can turn on their Read and Write toolbar. And notice it's already predicting how I might want to start my sentence, but I don't have to start like that. I can start with Walt, and then I can start typing, and it's like, oh, loved. And it's going to say the word for me too.
Walt Disney and the Disney family.
Stop.
Walt became used to.
Stop talking. Loved animals. So they, it will actually predict, or if someone has trouble, like animals can be difficult to spell and you're not sure if it should be an A or a whatever. So let me see if I can get it to predict mid-word. And you can animals. And then it will go from there. And it will, and notice it will give them predictive text.
Plants.
He also loved, right? And then I can start typing and see if it comes up with any words.
Area, art.
So that is a tool that students can use to help. There's also a proofreading tool that if you highlight text, it will check their text and look for errors. So it thinks there might be an error. I don't know what the error is. It thinks there might be an error with misbehavior, and it's asking if I want to be sure, if I want to ignore. Now remember, Google also has this built in as well. Okay, sure, I'll change it to that. That's not really needed, but I'll change it to that. Here's another interesting feature that it has, on most pages. Some of your students find the amount of text and things overwhelming. It could be because it is a long text like this one and the print is small. They can use this little feature called Screen Mask, and it turns on, it's like putting a lamp and only showing part of the page highlighted or lit up at a time so that they can better focus on what it is that is being said without as much distraction. Now, before I go on, let me check the chat because I want to show another tool. Yes, and I was mentioning, Sarah, in my last thing that you have to pin them, and then someone in my last session was saying there was no push pin. So I have to troubleshoot what happened there because I was like, I thought I knew the answer. You have to pin it. And then someone said they didn't have the push pin. So I have to troubleshoot that some more. Thank you, everybody. So that works. And you can see that on this one, it also works. If I choose screen masking, it will actually allow me to look at a certain spot. It doesn't let me choose the size of the mask. So it doesn't let me get it down to just one line. Although if I go over here to options, let me see if screen masking, there we go. This will let me change. Let me turn it off right now. Hold on. Hold on a second. It's not liking what I did there. Let me turn it off. Let's go to more. Go to options, and actually it will let me change it. So I can change the background color and how transparent that is. Like if I need it to be extremely, much darker, I could do that and not have it be very transparent at all. The height for the reading light, so I can bring that down if I need to. Oops, my mouse gets stuck. There we go. I can say okay, and if I hit the screen masking now, it's a smaller piece because I dragged the line down so that it's not showing as much. And again, with that options area, you can actually change how dark the part that's not lit up is, so that if they need it to be even darker in order to not be distracted by it, they can do that. The part about this that's a little challenging is the students do this on their own. So in letting students know that they have access to this tool, you also have to let them know that they have access to the options for several of the items in the toolbar to change the language of the translations, for example, to change some of the characteristics of the screen mask, to do the prediction and speech. Like it has different kinds of settings that they can set, like, do continuous reading, speak on each word, speak on each sentence. And even here's another translation area that comes up in a couple of places. So they can actually make those own adjustments, but each student has to make those adjustments themselves. Now, this page happens to also have extra stuff on the side, and it does have some cute photos. And I will show you a thing where this doesn't do well, but it has the headline, a subhead, a caption for the photo, the article, some random stuff on the side. And then at the bottom, it actually has comparing cats and dogs, and it has a little chart. And then it has a couple other items. What you can do as a student is click on simplify text, simplify page rather, sorry about that. And now it's loading only the article. It did not give me the header picture or the sub headline of the picture. It did keep this picture. It also did mess up the comparing cats and dogs. That's completely useless now because it moved it out of its chart area. But for the main part of the article, it got rid of the stuff on the side. It got rid of some of the other extra things that would be distracting. And your students can combine this with the screen mask, again, to work on their ability to focus. And notice the screen mask has its own settings tool right here so that you can adjust it on the fly if you need to. So I could grab this and be like, I want it to be more opaque and the screen light's so much brighter. And I can see if that works for me. Oops. And again, my mouse got stuck. I have to clunk my little magic mouse on the table to get it to set. So I made it a little darker, for example. And I can move that tool anywhere I need it in order to access it better. Okay, so I'm going to turn that off right now. The next set of tools, so we've already talked about playing it aloud, the picture dictionary, the regular dictionary. We talked about the predict tool for when they're writing, and the checking tool, which again, Google already has the checking tool built in really well. We talked about the web tool, but mentioned that how Google probably has a better web tool for them and for your learners built into Google Docs and also Google Slides, actually. This one we skipped. This one is the screen, it's not telling me what it is, and I forgot the name of it. But basically, if you have text inside an image, people who depend on screen readers typically can't access that text. The screen reader doesn't see it. The screen reader thinks it's a picture, and it's not looking for words inside of that image. So if you have text inside an image, this tool will actually convert that into something that is accessible using optical character recognition, or OCR, so that the student receiving that text that has some words and then an image that also has words inside of the image will be able to actually access those words using their accessibility tools, such as the read aloud feature and so on in screen readers. So that's what this is. And I forgot the name of it, but I have the name of it down here, Screenshot Reader. It has an extension that is separate from Read and Write. So when you first click on it, you will be prompted to install the extension for that. And it is unblocked. You would know if it was blocked because it would say install disabled by admin. But you will need to, if a student needs that, they'll need to add this one to Chrome. If a teacher needs it, they would need to go ahead and add it, but they'll be prompted to do so as soon as they click on the tool. They'll be prompted to install that so that they have the tool. Reminder that this is the one that will convert all the text in the document to an audio MP3 file on your hard drive. This is the search tool. This is the screen mask. This is the talk and type. So let's go to an undone document over here and let's look at talk and type. Now, as it turns out, Google has this built in too. So when I click on it, it actually brings up Google's own little microphone. But I've played with this in Microsoft Outlook because I'm known for preferring to dictate my emails rather than type them. And I do it on my phone all the time. And I have gotten much better about reading it before I hit send because it has come up with some unusual errors. But there are voice to type tools built into Google. So when you click the talk and type tool, it actually is going to bring up Google's own microphone. And you can see that it has an error because it did Google Zone, comma, but overall, it is pretty accurate when it tries to transcribe what you say into typed text, period. So turn that off. All right, so now I'm gonna have to go back here. And what's funny is it did it right the second time and did what it was supposed to do the first time. Google's own microphone, because Google has a thing. And then if you need to, you can go back and fix it. But that is a text to type tool that your students can use in places that have the ability for students to type text. So when I go over to this article, there aren't very many places for me to type text here. So it has the type, talk, and text tool. So if I go here, I can try clicking on that. Let's see if it works. Notice that now Washington Post is like, am I okay to use the microphone? Yep, go ahead and use the microphone. NNADITZ at SANJUAN.edu. So it did have a problem. It doesn't understand, and I probably should have said the name of the symbol, but I didn't. But it didn't understand the symbol, so it tried to do that, and then it did edu as all caps, and it spaced it. So it's not a perfect tool, but if there is a place where students can type text, generally speaking, they can click on that little talk and type feature, and they can use that to help them get their words onto the page. This again is your translate tool. And then you have 4 colors. These are your highlighting tools. So let's say you gave students instructions to highlight activities that the dogs do in yellow and descriptions of dogs. I don't know if there's ever going to be any, but descriptions of dogs in green. So I'm going to grab my yellow highlighter. Well, first I'm going to do activities dogs do. Dogs do those 3 things. So I'm going to highlight them and make them yellow. Furry is a description. So I'm going to highlight furry in green. You have to select it first and then choose the color. Let's see. Play is something that dogs do. So let's highlight that in yellow. And then we're going to see if there's any other, oh, that's a mutt is a description of a dog. So I'm going to put that in green. Technically, this author is also using best in show winners as a description. Okay, oops. And there's my mouse acting up again. Nope. Best in show winners in green. So I am making color-coded highlights based on the instructions of my teacher to use certain colors for certain purposes. You don't have to do that. Obviously, you can just let kids highlight however they'd like, if you would like. But hunted is an activity and so on. Now, here's what's interesting. Now I have all these highlights, but I'm on a web page. So what do I do with those? Well, what I can do is hit the collect highlights feature. I only used yellow and green, so I'm going to uncheck this. There's also sorting highlights by position, but in this case, I want to sort them by color. I'm going to hit OK. And what it's going to do is it's going to collect them and make a new document for me. It will ask me to confirm which account, so it'll be important. Oops, hold on. You can't see it right now because it opened a whole new window. Give me a second. Hold on a second. Stop share, share screen. See if I can find, there we go. The screen, it opened up in a completely new window. So where'd it go? Hold on a second. See if I can find it. There we go. So then I have to give it all these permissions so that I can do, so it can actually go in and create a file in my Google Drive. Because the window's closed. Hold on. And then Zoom is having a hard time with this because it's opening new windows. It opened a new window again. So there we go, share. And let's bring that back to the front. Okay. So in theory, there we go. So now what it has done is it has collected my yellow highlights, my green highlights, the link from where the highlights came from, and my account. In theory, I could now, I have this as a file in Google Drive. I'm going to click this down thing because I'm missing some of my, there we go. And it says I have untitled highlights, but I could title them. National Dog Day article. Oops. Apparently I typed too fast. My thing has trouble like this. National Dog Day article. And I would be able to turn this into my teacher if my teacher wanted it, or I just have the highlights for me. We're going to show another thing on here in a minute that is also going to cause my Zoom to freak out because it's going to open new tabs to do it, and then it's going to try to close everything. But another thing students can do is they can create vocabulary lists. So this will create a new, oh, that was dumb. Oh, well. Let's see what happens. So now what it's doing is it's creating a vocabulary list. I can change the title of it. And in this case, it actually took everything I highlighted and turned it into a list with the word I highlighted, the meaning, a symbol, and a place for me to take notes. And it did that for everything I highlighted. So that's another way you could have students using the highlighting tool. The students can use it, and then after they highlight items, instead of clicking on collect highlights, they can click on vocabulary list, and everything that they highlighted will become its own listing in this document that it created for them. Interestingly, it actually is also giving additional, like hunted could mean searched. And then notice that it actually gives some kind of contextual statement to help students better understand the definition. So reflecting the fear or terror of someone who is hunted. And then it says the hopeless hunted look on the prisoner's face, or a glitter of apprehension in her hunted eyes. I haven't used hunted that way. The act of trying to find something, the hunt for the missing ship. So it's going to give some kind of contextual phrase or sentence to help the student better understand the definitions. It's using alternating colors, but it's a table and the students can edit that if they want. Thought it was interesting. It didn't know what to do with mutts at all. It didn't do anything there, but it did for the other ones. It created all this and left us space for notes for the student. Then your other remaining tools are that you can attach a voice note. It will appear in the comments area. For those of you who are familiar with Kami, it's a little bit like what you can do in Kami. So if students have a document, let me see, I don't think that, yeah, you can't do it on a web page because you can't attach something to a web page that you don't own. It isn't yours. But on any document, they can attach a voice note. So I could highlight this word, and instead of just typing comment over here and then typing a comment, I can click on voice note. I have 1 minute. A toolbar is a series of icons that will appear at the top of the page, and each icon does a different task or function. A series, okay, good. We're gonna pretend that was a good recording. And then I'm gonna hit insert. And it's thinking really hard right now because it needs to process that audio and figure out where it's going to put it. And these audio comments are going to appear off to the right-hand side. And now there's a little play button. So this does mean that for you, you now have a couple of ways, among others, some of you know of more ways, that you can use to add audio comments to students' work. You could use this toolbar to add audio. You can also use the Kami toolbar to add audio to your students' work, even if they didn't do it in Kami. You could use the Kami toolbar to add audio, or you could bring up your Read and Write toolbar when you're grading Google Docs that your students turn in, and you can now add audio using that toolbar. if that would be helpful to your learners. Now, here's one of the other interesting features. This is more for elementary school, but another thing you can do is you can highlight as the student a series of words. It could be a single word or a sentence or a whole paragraph or even the whole article. And they're going to click where it says practice reading aloud. It's going to open in a new tab. Okay. And then it actually says, and notice it has kind of a miniature version of the Read and Write toolbar here. And over here it has, it actually opened up this better. It actually has the whole article. I don't have to do the whole thing if I don't want to, but I can start anywhere I'd like. And it says, are you ready to practice reading? Click the record button, which is the microphone, to get started. Click stop when you're finished. Click play to listen to how you did. Re-record as much as you want, and then click the send button to share your awesomeness with your teacher. So start recording. National Dog Day was started in 2004 by mom, author, and pet expert Colleen Page. The idea caught on, and now there's an International Dog Day as well, also on August 26th. Stop. And I can play that back. Start recording. National Dog Day was started in 2004 by mom. Okay. And then I can then hit send. And we're trying to find a list of teachers. It's probably going to have a problem with that because I don't have any teachers. So I'm not sure what that's going to come up with right now. But in theory, it should be looking at the students' kind of Google Classroom list and who they are students in and possibly giving them those teachers. I'm going to let that play there for a minute and see if it comes up with anything because I am a student in a couple of Google Classrooms. This tool is so new that I haven't had a chance to practice it yet, but I did just get Apple's little spinning wheel of death. So we'll see how that goes. Hold on a second. There we go. I'm going to move. Nope, I'm not going to move. I'm going to see if I can get out of this. I'm going to stop share. There we go. All right. So let me go back to sharing my screen and go back to, oh, phooey. Hold on one second. I'm going to go back to my Chrome window and see if I can get out of there. Come on, come on. Ah, looks like I might have gummed up the whole, there we go. All right. I'm going to share my screen again now that I got out of the share. Hold on one second. There we go. Okay. It's still a little upset with me, so I might be kind of stuck. I'm just going to close that. It did not like that at all. Oh. Okay, hold on. Nope. All right, let's stop share. Nope, that crashed up my whole thing trying to do Zoom with that at the same time. But as soon as my spinny circle stops, I will get that going again. In your resource document, you have links to resources that can be shared with students. There we go. That can be shared with students as well as with other teachers. Oh, here we go. All right, hold on. It's trying to create things, but it's gotten very bogged down. Hold on a second. Just letting my computer think through its process. It didn't like trying to do that with Zoom happening, so it really gummed up the works, so to speak. All right, I'm gonna come back here. There we go, we're gonna say allow. So what it's doing right now was it was giving me, it was requesting all these permissions of me in order to eventually be able to hopefully send my reading practice off. However, what it didn't do was give me, it didn't give me any way to say which teacher I was sending it off to. It just kind of closed everything after I gave it those permissions. So I'll check on that in a minute and just see if I get anywhere with that. So again, to review, you have this toolbar in theory. If you're signed into Chrome browser with your San Juan account, there should be a little purple RW puzzle piece. If there's not, see if you see a gray puzzle piece. Now, as I said, I definitely had students who did not see a gray puzzle piece. Not students, I'm so sorry, participants earlier today who didn't see the gray puzzle piece, and because of that, they didn't see this. But what it is that you're looking for is, as you look at this list, you want to make sure that Read and Write for Chrome has a blue push pin instead of just a little outlined white push pin. The blue push pin is what makes it visible or pinned to your Chrome bar up here with your extensions. If you don't see that, which means you don't see manage extensions either, if you don't see the gray puzzle piece, sorry, I'm distracted because something new just appeared. Control your music. Okay. So if you don't see that, you can also click on the 3 dots to the right of your profile picture. You can go to your settings, and usually from here, you can go to extensions on the left. And you can see, for example, application launcher is not turned on right now. If there are ones that I don't have turned on, like let's do this right now. Let's turn on color pick eyedropper. It lets you choose color values from web pages where there's a color on someone's web page that you love and you want that to be like your ink color or something. So let's turn that on. So it wasn't on before. I turned on this color picker, and this is the icon. And you'll notice that I turned it on and it's still not here, which means I still can't use it on a web page if I want to. So I still need to find this puzzle piece because it's probably sitting, there it is. And it doesn't, the push pin is not blue. So if I click that, now my little color picker one is here and available for me to use. This is something that just happened in Chrome within the last month or two. So this is a little change in how you manage your extensions. The thing I'm a little bit stuck on is when the other participant told me they didn't have the puzzle piece, because you'll notice that in here, I can turn mode on, but even if I click details, I don't get the option to pin it. That's not one of the details I can pick. So if a person doesn't get the push pin from the puzzle piece, I'm a little bit stuck. Notice here's mode, and I can click that to start it, and that'll do it, but I can also pin it there. Okay, so that's a little bit of information about that extension because you will need it in order to access the toolbar. Oops, bring back my thing. The other thing that I wanted you to remind you of is that although this is often seen as a tool for students, there are things that teachers can do as well. One of the things we noted that teachers can do is add audio comments. Teachers could also use the highlighting tools in very specific ways. They could create vocab lists from texts by highlighting items in a text and then having it create the vocab list and sending that out to students who need it or all students. So remember that you can also use these tools in order to create things that will support your learners. Okay, let's see, I lost my, there we go. Oh, I wasn't sharing, that's why. Sorry about that. I noticed that just now. I was having inordinate trouble with my, hold on, I'll bring it back. There we go. So what I wanted to show you was that even if, and I couldn't see my Zoom thing either, Melissa, so I missed that you raised your hand too. If items are not turned on with the push pin, if they're not pinned, they don't appear here. Now that doesn't mean you can't use it. You can click on the extension if it's not pinned to use it one time. But if you're going to use it several times, you're going to want to just push that little blue push pin so that it's one of the programs that's up here and available to you at all times. So I would encourage students to make sure that they pin Read and Write to their Google Chrome. If you are someone who's going to use the highlighting tool to then create vocab lists that you can send to students based on a text that have, as you saw, the way the vocab list was, that have the images and the meaning and everything, and you can edit it. So if you don't like the way it did the contextual clues and so on, you can change that, or you can remove the ones that are beyond what your students need and so on. But in any case, if you want to use those tools, or you think you might be using this regularly to create audio notes or to create vocab lists, you will also want to pin the extension so that the push pin is blue, and that way you don't have to go hunting for it. the place where I'm a little bit stuck, as I was saying earlier, is this is the gray puzzle piece I was referring to. And for some reason that wasn't available on one of my participants' Chrome browsers earlier today, and I'm not sure why. That is the only way to get the push pin. You can get to your extensions by clicking on the three dots and going to settings, and then in the left, clicking on extensions. And you can turn extensions on, but they still won't appear in here at the top unless they get pinned. And if you don't have the puzzle piece, there does not appear to be a way to pin. So I can turn on Google Arts and Culture, but nothing over here will pin Google Arts and Culture for me. Even if I click on details, it shows that it's on, allow access, do the blah, blah, blah. That's defaulted to on. Extension options, I suppose I can click there. Maybe that will do it. So far, nope, that doesn't give me the pin either. If I don't have this puzzle piece, I still can't pin Google Arts and Culture so that it shows up in my Chrome browser. So I only go over that so much. And again, since you couldn't see my screen, because I can see that being a problem for students and for those teachers who do intend to use this regularly to provide additional support resources for their learners. It has to be up here so that you can click on the toolbar and turn it on so that you see your tools here. If you see it, you might want to use the remaining time. We have about 12 minutes, and then I do have a meeting at 5 o'clock also, not a training, but a meeting. But this is a great time for questions, but this is also a great time for you to see if you find it and if you can sign into your Chrome browser and actually turn on, click, go to a website, open up a Google Doc, and just play around with this extension and see how it behaves in different types of documents and which tools work well. Obviously, this picture dictionary is going to be better for nouns than it is for abstract words. But you have the picture dictionary tool. If you speak another language, I highly recommend you go into the settings, go to options, and go to the translation part and pick the language you speak so that you can play around with the translate tool, so that you can see no word selected. But like if I pick furry, peludo, I only speak a little Spanish, but I can tell that comes from the word for fur, for animal fur. So that's probably close. You can actually play around with that and see how it behaves. Oh, the one I didn't tell you about, this little broom is just to clear your highlights. So if I highlight things, it's not going to be very discerning. If I highlight multiple things, my understanding is it's going to clear them all. But let me see if it gives me a choice. Come on. Oh, no, that's right. It is discerning. If you want to get rid of one, highlight it, click on it to select it again with your mouse, and then click clear highlight, and that will take away the highlights for just the things you want to take it away from. Sorry about that. Oops. But this is, if you're interested, this is time for you to ask questions or time for you to play with the extension on your own device. That in essence is the tool. I think it's a really useful tool potentially, right? Depending on how we support students to use it. But I do see that it's going to need some support. So in your document, and I think everybody has the document in the chat, hopefully, but I'm going to post it again in case anybody came in after I shared it. In the document, you actually have some resources at the end to help you with this tool. So among your resources, there's some courses that Read and Write offers, and I'm actually asking them to, one of their staff will provide another training for us, so that will probably be better. But you'll notice you also have a quick reference guide, and when you click on that, you'll see that it's like the list of the tools with description, but it's big and easy to read, different from my Google Doc. A tool usage guide, a quick reference guide in Spanish, a guide specifically to the tools for the writing process, that checking, that proofreading tool and the prediction tool, for example, some voice choices, and then resource pages with samples for students and for teachers. So I highly recommend looking at those because they actually have a whole series of like really cool ways that teachers can use this. So if you go to the end of your support document, you'll find all of that there. Okay, all right. I'm going to say goodbye, but you know how to find me. So just email me at nnaditz, because I'm an old timer too. So at nnaditz@sanjuan.edu if you run into questions.